Hey there, loved ones. Dana of Dana Spirit Butterfly, or otherwise known as Dana Spirit Butterfly here. This is an energy forecast. I like to do these monthly, as you would know, or cyclically, as I like to use the term, to respect the sacred feminine rising and the usage of new language and new awarenesses of our ecology and environmental factors. Today is to cover what you might say is February, but what's probably closest to the truth is that it's the next moon cycle. And so the next moon cycle starts on the 22nd of January, and the energetics of it apex at around the 6th or 7th of February, which is when the full moon in Leo apexes. And it tails off until the 20th of Feb. Have my notes. And so we're starting a Aquarian cycle. Of course, Spirit's just asked me to remind you we're in what we call the Age of Aquarius, which is really just a commentary on where we are developmentally as a collective consciousness. It's not necessarily to introduce a level of woo-woo to undermine your own sense of wellness and your own way of adhering to the dominant system on the planet at the moment, which of course is the Gregorian calendar. And these things, as I say, I do get a little bit locked up. I'm just going to say that. And I say that partially because I'm experiencing it, which is a part of what spirit channeling requires. I need to communicate that which arises in the moment of channel. But also the resistance that I feel around my throat is very much around the suppression the suppression of technology or knowledge, wisdom. Suppression of information that is useful for us, was useful for us, that has been deconditioned out of the system because there was this education system that proliferated, that took advantage of a wealth situation, and that technology was needed by others on the planet and kind of directed the flow of that stream, kind of directed the flow of that belief system. And it's quite common in movements of collective fields. So when I say collective fields, I'm talking about us belonging together in a shared situation. So me being in Australia and being born here and also holding a passport and citizenship makes me Australian. And that means that I belong to the collective consciousness of Australians, but I'm also a woman. And so by natural extension, I also belong to the collective field of feminine energy or women. Not the same, slightly different, and we will communicate that hopefully across the series of the videos that we offer. Me, I'm a spirit channel, and so that also puts me in a belonging sense of a spiritual practitioner. And when I use the term spirit channel, it's my choice to use that. It's a term that a lot of people misunderstand and a lot of people communicate resistance towards. And I want to advocate for your sense feeling. As a healer, as a practitioner, as someone who's here to offer maybe an alternative way of living your life, maybe a slight movement away from the mainstream consciousness towards something that maybe is a little bit more grounded for yourself. Yourself is very important. I'm here to communicate the language of spirit. So I use the term spirit channel to indicate that as I show up as this in this moment, I'm here to tune in, to lean into an energetic expression that relates to a collective field. In this case, this would be you, this would be me, this would be any person who this video is intended for, or any person who's watching this video. It is intended for you, whether you drop in or drop out of it, doesn't matter. But the collective field that we are gathering through this particular experiencing, this expression, that's what this is intended for. So I have access to the collective field that relates to us. And in this moment, I am in the spiritual flow of energy that relates to that. But also because of my own personal value system, and also because I've been at this for a while, I choose to lean into a collective field or collective consciousness of what we call the rose frequency. And you will hear more about this because I decided this year that I would not hide that work from individuals or from you anymore, that I was going to be a lot more, I would allow that stream of consciousness to weave through my channels much more obviously. And that's because for me, Rose is a language of compassion, it's a language of kindness, it's a language of gifting and understanding the nature of gifts and giving. It's also very strongly aligned with feminine language, deities such as Kuan Yin, Isis, Mary Magdalene, Mother Mary. These types of energies are very closely aligned with Rose frequency, and they represent, in a fashion, a quintessential woman. They represent our mother lineage, what we term mother lineage, not to be held in opposition to father lineage, because these are all a part of the dialogue of spirit. These are all a part of our collective consciousness and our awarenesses that are needed to be cultivated in order for us to communicate between you and me. Between me and whoever it is I'm speaking to, between you and whoever it is that you're speaking to, whoever it is that you interact with across your day to day. And so this is where we land in practicalities, that recognition that spirituality, in order for it to be functional and useful, it needs to reach you, it needs to land, it needs to be supportive of you. Spirit is saying that our flow this year is going to be slightly different in terms of the way that and I'm not just talking about me and Spirit, I'm talking about our collective field. So this also includes you. This year and the flow is going to be a bit different, and you probably already have felt it. You probably already felt a slight shift or change or deviation from your attitudinal structures. So the way that you maybe made your decisions previously, that maybe you've let go of some of the more childish aspects of your decision-making process. Maybe you somehow just owned up to the fact that it's not working for you. Maybe you've owned up to the fact that the conversations you've been having don't seem to go anywhere. They don't seem to match you. They don't seem to offer any variation of what it is that you were hoping for. And maybe you've just accepted that deep down inside of you is a little boy or girl who really hasn't been voiced yet. And even if you have been voicing them, that maybe nobody's been receiving that. And as I land on receiving, Spirit has had me journey a lot so far this year with this idea of receiving. We mentioned it, I believe, in the last channel, the last collective channel, as I remember. I don't always remember because I'm with them, so my whole awareness isn't fully... I don't need to explain myself, Spirit said. All right. And so, truthfully, the flow of allowance and receiving is a really big part of seeing the world as the gift that it is, and seeing every opportunity that you're experiencing at the moment is all experience and it's all valuable on some level. And we hope that by the end of the year, you've really got that landed, this idea that you're safe where you are, that what you're doing is perfectly fine, and that you just need to stay still and stay open to allowing things to come to you. And, I kind of land on psychic insight, this idea of psychic insight. A lot of people think that, I was joking the other day, I always joke about this particular thing, that as a psychic, I don't predict anything, right? I don't predict shit. It's not the point. The point of psychic language, discernment, is not about prediction. It's not about trying to say that this is coming in the future and you must be warned, it's coming for you, you're going to have to adjust to it. Sometimes that stuff comes out in channel. Sometimes it does. But why it's shown, we don't always know, because when it's shown, you may actually change what it is that you're doing because you've heard it and thus land somewhere else. So the true value of psychic energy, of spirit channeling, or what have you, has nothing to do with future prediction. Although it is possible, there's a potential of the stuff that we say, the stuff that you discern in the psychic field is going to be true. It isn't always, and it's our human ego that needs to know because it feels insecure, because it feels like it lacks safety. And we are of a generation, thankfully, that understands this idea of safety, that it's more than just roof over your mouth, roof over your head, food in your mouth, clothes on your back. It's more than that, right? There's a lot more to feeling safe in our bodies that is needed in order to feel safe in our experiencing. And we need sometimes to retrain. We sometimes need to retrain the neurology. Sometimes we need to retrain the feeling sense. Sometimes we need to retrain our awareness, our language, our communication tools. Instead of sending an email, maybe you pick up the phone and call. I don't know, but either way, you need to change it. We need to change it. And this particular cycle being an Aquarian cycle, Aquarians are kind of interesting energetically, because whenever I read an Aquarian, I nearly always assume they're Piscean. Pisces, of course, are water signs, and they're highly emotional and very dreamy. They tend to have a lot of dreams, right? And with Aquarius solar ruled individuals, they often, not always, but they often have a vibration about them, an energy, a flow about them that lands them more fully in conversation. They like to share stuff. They feel like they're visionaries, because quite often they are. They really do see beautiful things, amazing things, wonderful things, and they're great at inspiring that about others. But sometimes it can come across as ungrounded. Sometimes it can come across as lacking grounded reality, like lacking the ability, the practical application skills to be able to see it come to fruition in the physical world. And so often with the second month of the year anyway, if you want to lean into the Gregorian numerological system, which you can if you'd like, your choice, your experience, your choice, please make it. Please be aware. Please dialogue with what your preference is. You're okay to have a preference. It's okay to do something different to what I'm doing. It's fabulously fine. Because your system is what's intelligent, right? It's your system and how it operates for you. That's the most important thing energetically. So if you can align with you, if you can feel into what it is that your belief system is and that feels harmonious for you, then great, awesome. The next step then is to communicate that which you desire, and to communicate that which you're looking for, and to see what the impact of that does. And the impact of that is the telltale as to whether or not the timing's right for you. When we land on timing, we say that there's a universal timing thing, which basically means that you can't rush things. So if you feel the pressure to get a program out that you're trying to build, or if you feel pressure to have to change something about yourself by the end of the year or what have you, just understand that that pressure in itself is actually a signifier of your own energetic system being in a particular paradigm. I don't want to put it in right or wrong, because putting pressure on yourself can reap rewards to some extent, but provided you're listening to yourself as you travel along that journey towards that goal, provided you're listening to what it is that is happening around you as you're heading your way towards that goal, you'll be able to take better care of yourself on the road. And so if you're feeling like in order to get to that goal, in order to get to that future perspective, you have to take a massive leap of faith, and that massive leap of faith is going to require you to be someone completely different, then you can change for sure, but maybe not all of it is available to you this year. You don't know, right? Like I said, we can't really fully predict things. Please stop trying. The reason why we predict, as we said earlier, is actually because we're trying to provide or pave a pathway of security for ourselves. We're trying to pave a pathway of, this is the destination I want to head, and this is the most successful way I'm going to get there without the collateral damage of having to fall out anywhere, without having to have problems. Totally part of the human conditioning experience, totally okay. But understand that the experiencing of it, the actual experiencing of it, will probably be different. And if you've done the work over the last few years, like we've been talking about this whole time, and actually been showing up to practices and, listening to the dialogue, and maybe reaching out to a practitioner if you need a little bit of support and guidance, which is no shame in that. It's really important that you do that. If you haven't had the money for it, Spirit is reminding me to trust that sometimes we need to go backwards in order to go forwards. So what that means is that sometimes we need to dive a little bit into the darkness, a little bit into the discomfort, a little bit into this is not quite all right, in order for us to make the necessary changes and have what we call the ego deaths in order to accelerate towards that which it is that's intended for you. Trust me, there's something that's intended for you. There's always something that's intended for you. Always something. But it might not look like what it is that you had planned. And this is what you have to adjust to. This is what we're adjusting to. The future may not look like we had planned. And this is the universal message across the board over the next 6 months. What it is that you have planned may not end up looking what it is that you're planning. And that doesn't mean you shouldn't plan. That doesn't mean you shouldn't dream. That doesn't mean that you shouldn't put pen to paper and write those words. What it means is that you need to allow for a certain level of acceptance across the road on the journey, that you're not going to have all the answers. not all the boxes that you are supposed to tick before you land that job are available to you right now. They'll show themselves as you're traveling on the road. What you need really is just trust that it's going to work out for you. And that, I understand if you lack in trust. I absolutely go there a lot of the time, sometimes less now, because I have been doing rose work for so long, to cultivate that sense of trust that something is guiding you, that something is supporting you, is a leap of faith. It's a leap of vulnerability. It's daring to trust that there's something behind the gates that you can open if you'd like. You can open them if you like, but you actually have to show up to that circle. You actually have to show up to that workshop. You actually have to show up to that deeper well that says to you, you need to meditate. And maybe you should start tomorrow or even today. But you need to open the gates. You need to dare to believe that there's intelligence to this whole picture that can be discerned by you, that will support you. But you have to start the dialogue. And the dialogue is what's important. So what matters is not the goal at the end of the road. What matters is that you feel supported as you head towards that goal. And if you don't find the support that you need in the physical world because there aren't physical people around you, then our recommendation, and we're just going to leave it as a recommendation, is to start a conversation with spirit. And there are right and wrong ways to do it. I'm not going to say that you have to pick a particular religion in order for it to be right, because that's not the same conversation that we're having right now. What I am saying, though, is that there's a way to recognize the mind chatter and the part of us that is creative that makes stuff up and makes an illusion in the head, and actually dropping into something that's a little bit more deep, a little bit more connected, a little bit more real to your own system. And that takes courage to do, for sure, particularly in this world where we put so much emphasis on rational learning in rational ways and, mathematical ways, structural ways. There are other ways, and those other ways have always been available to us. The psychics of this world have actually always been here. The witches that sit in your back, in the back of the forest, have always been there. The energy sensitives have actually been betwixt and between in our community spaces for quite some time. It's just that we have been deconditioned to value them in the way that they have the potential to be valuable to us and indeed to the greater community. And for those of you who feel like you identify as one of those men or women, then this is what the rose work is about. This is about the repair and the reconciliation with what's happened, with how we've journeyed so far, and what it is that we've got available to us now to move forwards. And that is my work. That is what Dana Spirit Butterfly and the Sacred Rose Awakening is about. So with that, just before we head off, I did mention new moon in Aquarius on the 22nd of January, 6th or 7th of February, depending on where you are in the hemisphere. Leo full moon, and on the 20th of February or the 19th, if you're in the northern hemisphere, is the new moon in Pisces. We also have during this month 2 Celtic celebrations that I do want to respect and pay my respects towards and name, because I'm in the southern hemisphere. We are currently going through summer, and so on the 2nd of February we have the celebration of Lammas, or the celebration of Lu. And Lu is God. He's connected to the harvest. And this time of year is actually considered high summer, or the end of summer. So we are journeying at the moment to the celebration at the end of summer, where we celebrate fertility and the harvest. And we make decisions actually about whether or not we want to continue with what it is that we've been building so far, and with the relationships that we have so far, or whether or not we want to start to maybe head in a different direction towards something else. We're building up to the spring equinox. If you're in the northern hemisphere, you're heading into what's called Candlemas or Imbolic. It is essentially the considered the end of winter and the start of spring. And it's the time where they call it Candlemas, because the idea is that you light a candle to represent the beginning of new light. So the starting to move out of winter, starting to move into the beginning of light. So during this period of time, it's also, I think, St. Bridget's feast day, and that would be on the 1st of February, 1st, 2nd February, whenever it is that you might celebrate that. And so it's a slightly different, obviously, different hemisphere. So the celebration there is a little bit different, but this is where you celebrate the end of the hibernation, the end of the introspection, and the beginning to start to turn outward again, to start to head out the door and to start to plan what it is that your next steps are to move forwards with your life and what it is that you might grow heading into spring equinox. Sorry, I said spring equinox before. So Southern Hemisphere, autumn equinox, spring equinox in the Northern Hemisphere. And so just before I wrap up, I also just want to acknowledge that I'm on Bunjalong land. Really happy to be here. This is my home at the moment. And if you have felt that you've connected to this video, if you listen to the end and it feels like you'd like to maybe leave me a comment or just give me a reaction, I'd really appreciate the recognition of you listening and receiving that which we've transmitted today. So just acknowledging Rose and the Earth Mother frequency. So thank you so much for allowing me to be of service. If you'd like a one-on-one session, of course, danaspiritbutterfly.com is my website. The next circle opportunity will be a rose circle. We're now renaming the Sacred Sister Soul Circles as rose circles. And that will be on the 19th, 20th, 21st of March. So, all right, my friends, until our next time, have an amazing cycle. Okay, see you.